Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityormamritam gamaya aviravirmaedhi rudrayate dakshinangamukam Tenamam bhahi nityam. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Sri Ramakrishna and the modern world. To begin with, I would like to give a type of sketch of the life of Sri Ramakrishna. But not necessarily all the historical details in chronological accuracy, but aspects of his life that would be necessary to understand the spiritual implications of what we're trying to understand. Now, Sri Ramakrishna was born in 1836 and he passed away in 1886, so 50 years. He lived the life of embodiment on this earth. He was born in Kamarpukur, which is a very small village. Even today it's a small, not even really a town. You could say a large village today. In those days it was even more bucolic than it is today. And so he grew up in a very traditional household, in a very traditional social situation. And the emphasis was always on the spiritual aspect of things. Frequently, our tendency, I would say probably, or most of the time, our tendency is to emphasize physical or psychological things. That aspect of existence, because those are the aspects that we really have to deal with in a concrete way from our very birth. But Sri Ramakrishna, his mission in this life was different. This may not have been obvious to his parents or even perhaps to some extent to himself when he was growing up, but everything that happened was really for a forerunner, you could say, of the spiritual greatness that was to follow. And as an indication of that, I will just pick certain incidents from his childhood to show the type of personality that he was. Now, one time as a child, he was walking through a field, and suddenly he noticed there was a very dark storm cloud that had covered most of the sky. And against that very dark storm cloud, there suddenly appeared a flock of snow-white cranes. Now, cranes are large birds, and they make a significant display as they travel through the air. So this large flock of white cranes against the black storm cloud triggered something in his mind. He was always very sensitive to the artistic aspect of things. But in this case, he became actually overwhelmed by something deeper than the simple surface phenomenon of white cranes against the dark sky. And he lost consciousness. That is to say, he lost physical consciousness, but inwardly he was enormously elevated. Now, we also have experienced things of that sort, but we don't, somehow it doesn't affect, it affects us a little bit for a little while, but there doesn't seem to be a transformation in us. But for him, this was actually a transformation. It was an entry into another realm of consciousness. And that sort of thing can happen to us also. But for us, it has to be something overwhelming before it makes any great effect on us. We say, oh, this is beautiful, oh, this is fantastic, but it's not totally internally transforming, and this was what was the case apparently for Sri Ramakrishna as a young child. Because at the heart of everything that we perceive, there is something that we can at most infer or sense in some, to us, obscure way. But in every perception, this is the basic Vedantic idea. Pratibodha viditam from the Keda Upanishad. It is that reality that is beyond, that there is, first of all, a reality beyond the sense world, beyond the world of ordinary reality, beyond the world of the normal things that we do. Pratibodha viditam, in every knowledge, in every awareness, that supreme truth, that sublime reality is to be seen. Now, poets feel that walking through a field of daffodils, this evoked a tremendous feeling of exaltation. The poet naturally feels that, or begins to sense something beyond the ordinary. What is being perceived is something transcendental. We don't know it as such. We associate, if it's like what the poet there saw, a field of daffodils, it seems just like a field of flowers, and it's wonderful. Oh, it's magnificent. But really, we don't tend to go much deeper than that. But there is a place that type of reaction can be had. And that is at our center in the Himalayas. There is a center of the Ramakrishna mission in the Himalayas. It is called Mayavati. And it is where we have our editorial offices for our publication, the magazine that is published every month called Prabuddha Bharata. And there is at that place It is 6,900 feet elevation in the Himalayas. But its extraordinary location is that it is on a promontory that juts out from a ridge. And the ridge is pretty high, and the promontory really puts you way out into open space, you could say. And what you see when you sit there, it is, you could say, probably 100 miles or even more, 150 miles possibly, of snow peaks. You are at an altitude of about 7,000 feet. Those peaks are 25,000, 26,000, they're enormous. And it goes from left to right, from horizon to horizon. And they stand out in such sublime majesty, it is impossible. You simply sit there, your thoughts actually stop, you're not able, you're just totally immersed in the enormity of what you're seeing. And in a sense, everything seems to stop. Your breath almost stops, you could say. Now, this is, it's an extreme view, an extreme sight that you're viewing. And so it causes that. Usually it takes something absolutely dramatic to make our minds, to cut our minds loose from the ordinary things of this world, the things we see and think about and wish for and regret and all the ordinary activities. Suddenly all of that is totally submerged, and the immensity of the experiences overwhelms you. Now, you can't, for a person who is very sensitive, like Sri Ramakrishna always was, the flight of cranes, these white cranes against the dark storm cloud, was sufficient to remove the consciousness of the immediate surroundings and revealed to him that which is at the heart of every perception, but normally not seen. It took something extraordinary to make it visible. Anyway, he had that capacity, but it is a capacity that we also have. That is one thing that has to be remembered. He was the example, the exemplar, but the fact that he experienced it shows also that it is an experience that is available for everyone also. Beneath the ordinary, there is the extraordinary. And it is through, of course, we use techniques of various types. There is repetition of the name of God, there is meditation, there is singing spiritual hymns, there's doing selfless work for the sake of the welfare of others. All these things are different means, they're different yogas for attaining that sort of understanding, that sort of realization. But the point is that it's immediately available. Sri Ramakrishna, walking as a little child, maybe 6 years old, walking through the field, suddenly he was overwhelmed with that. This happened also several other times. Once he was going to visit a temple with some of the local people. They were making a pilgrimage to a temple not very far away, but somewhere in the neighborhood. And suddenly that consciousness of the reality behind the appearance overwhelmed him, and again he merged into that consciousness and was thought to have fainted, was thought, because he was no longer conscious of the ordinary world, but was engaged in that realization. Naturally, the people looking at it thought, oh, this boy has fainted, this boy is suffering from some problem, but it was the sense of this spiritual reality that again overwhelmed him. That happened the third time, recorded. It may have happened many times, but it's only recorded a few times, when he was asked to play a part in a play. In these villages, in those days especially, and of course that tradition continues even today, but there are local players, local performers who they may go from village to village, or there may be a group assembling in one village. Anyway, they get together and they have a worship and a performance depicting some incident in the sacred scriptures. And so he was supposed to play the part of Shiva, which is one of the principal deities that is invoked. And when he appeared on the stage, and the thing is, Shiva is perceived to be immersed in meditation in the Himalayas, and his body is covered with ashes, because holy ashes, the ashes of the sacred fire. All these are auspicious marks. And so those marks are put on by devotees also when they want to worship the deity in that way. So Sri Ramakrishna had been adorned in this fashion in order to play the part of Shiva in this little drama that was put on in the village. Actually, he hadn't initially been planning to do that. He had the boy who was supposed to play that part was for some reason indisposed, so Sri Ramakrishna was asked to take his part. And it's a play. I mean, there's a sort of a role. There may be a script of some sort that's supposed to be followed, and examples from the local tradition involving this particular deity. So he came on stage dressed to the part of Shiva with, all the signs and emblems that were expected. And again, he was a boy, maybe a little older this time, 7, 8, something. I'm not sure the exact age is recorded. And as he came on stage dressed like that, he suddenly, radiating that, the joy, the depth, of this role that he was playing, he walked on stage in a majestic way, as he was supposed to do, but then he was supposed to undertake certain steps. There was a little drama to be enacted and so forth. But the boy came out dressed as Shiva, and he came up onto the stage and simply stopped. And he looked the very part of what is understood to be the appearance of Shiva. And the audience was overwhelmed in this village, and full of enthusiasm, great praise and wonder at how well the boy was playing this part. But then slowly nothing else happened. There was supposed to be a play. There was supposed to be a series of sort of a dramatic aspects going on, but the boy simply stood there, totally absorbed in the being, in the reality of the role that was supposed to be make-believe. He had penetrated to the reality of it and was totally absorbed in that. And the audience began to, slowly they began to realize that this boy was totally absorbed in that role, and they became very impatient. Nothing was happening. The boy is supposed to perform this play, and he looks wonderful, but nothing more is going on. And they could not actually bring him back to the consciousness of his surroundings. He was so absorbed in the being of that divine reality that he was portraying. So he had actually been absorbed from this plane of consciousness into the consciousness of the reality that is behind the whole universe, behind the reality, behind the appearance. So this just shows the depth of his personality, even in youth, in that grand way. Now, certain other things were characteristic of him. He would become absorbed while uttering the name of God or while singing devotional songs. Now, when we normally do that, japa is called, the repetition of the name of God is japa. And that repetition goes on, and we begin to feel inspired by it. But it is supposed to develop into the actual consciousness of the reality that we are, whose name we are repeating. Again, these are standard spiritual practices that have been prescribed for untold ages, and they are practiced and certain results are obtained, but the Sri Ramakrishna's extraordinary competence, extraordinary understanding, or actually feeling himself to be that reality, feeling the reality within him, enabled him to be totally absorbed in whatever spiritual mood that he was working on, he was portraying. So this is, uttering the name of God, he was forgetting himself, he was becoming absorbed in the reality of the divinity whose name he was repeating. That's one aspect, the spiritual aspect. Then the question is, this is the modern age, and in the modern age we have to understand there has to be a very practical understanding also. Everything that we do is judged in many ways by this practical requirement. I mean, you can't just go anywhere you want. You have to use, there's certain rules of the road, there's certain ways of doing things. So it becomes important that children learn how to maneuver in this world so that they are in control of their own development and that they're not taken advantage of. So for that, Sri Ramakrishna also went to school for that purpose for a little while. But he found that he understood with a deep insight that the real purpose of the study that he was being asked to undertake, especially arithmetic and mathematical calculations of various sorts, he understood really that the purpose of it was only very practical, to manage to get along in this world, which is for us normally is the essential thing, because we really are not very cognizant of anything beyond this world that is to be reached. We feel that the adjustment to the necessities of this world is of prime importance. And in fact, the only practical thing for us to do. But Sri Ramakrishna understood, and this is also traditional of other spiritual incarnations and great spiritual personalities. Ye cannot love both God and mammon. These are all ancient ideas that are prevalent everywhere, but to practice them is not as common as to describe them. To utter them is easier than to actually follow them. But Sri Ramakrishna strongly within himself, as he was going to school, felt that actually the purpose of this education really was for one's welfare in this world. As he called it, bundling rice and plantains. Plantains, of course, are bananas for cooking bananas. So rice and vegetables, in other words, it's for one's ordinary life. And so he began to lose interest in it because he felt, especially as a result of the various spiritual experiences that he mentioned, that we've just mentioned, he felt that this was the central core of what one should do, that everybody around us is doing the ordinary thing, but that is only valid for practical purposes. Bundling rice and plantains, it's necessary for survival on this earth using earthly means and methods. But he also saw that the result of all of this does not lead anywhere farther than that. That the purpose of human life is something more than that. The purpose of human life is to perceive that which is normally hidden to the average individual, to perceive the eternal, something which does not die. This is the heart of the religious quest, to perceive within the ephemeral that which is eternal. And that is really, as far as the Vedanta philosophy is concerned, that is really the heart of the question, the heart of our spiritual intention. If there were nothing further, if this world really was all that there was, if what we perceive with the senses and with what we can think of with the mind, if that is all there is, what we see in the waking state and what we experience later in the dream state and what we enjoy in the deep sleep state, if those things are the only reality, if there's nothing else, then by all means we should try to optimize all of that in every way, whatever leads to a better experience on those levels. But the message of religion is not that. The message of religion that all of this, not this, everything that we see here, everything that we can think of here in the normal way, everything that we can experience here is all right and is effective and is to be undertaken, but it is not the essential. The essential thing is something else, that which is not any of those things. Those things, the normal things, they have brought us into existence. They support us while we are here on this earth, and they will also disappear sometime when we pass away. And according to the theory of reincarnation, we will come again to do this once more. But where does this all lead? It doesn't lead to anything except what is called samsara, samsara, to go round and round again, which is what we normally do. And there is, this is under normal circumstances, we don't look any further than that. But Sri Ramakrishna, from his very boyhood, especially because of the traditions of the village in which he was born, because of the traditions of the family in which he was born, there was always an understanding that that which comes and goes is not eternal. But the additional idea is that beyond and behind and interpenetrating that which is non-eternal, that which comes and goes, there is a reality which has never come and will never go. That is the difference. And it becomes important then when one sees the idea of reincarnation, of course, helps in this, because we're not, according to that idea, we're not getting anywhere different. We go round and round. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is explained in great detail, that whatever Arjuna asks, is this life going to, when it ends, does everything disappear like a cloud that vanishes in the sky? And Sri Krishna tells him, no, that whatever you have attained in a spiritual way, that is preserved, that is made available to a soul who is again, that soul is again reborn and is able to continue its struggle to understand the deepest reality, to become absorbed in that reality. So all of these ideas, especially in a very sensitive and mind like Sri Ramakrishna, that is what made sense, and that is why what we're talking about is Sri Ramakrishna in the modern world, and this is the idea that we're trying to, or that he was trying to emphasize, that beyond the ordinary activities of life, there is something which is eternal. There is a reality at the heart of the apparent. There is a reality that is the fundamental, that is something that is not, that is the frame within which the non-eternal takes place. And that is totally, even from a scientific standpoint, that is totally reasonable. I mean, there is nothing that can be described in science that can be described without the use of a coordinate system. That the phenomena of this world, all the phenomena of experience, all the things that science is trying to study and that we hope to achieve or we hope to avoid, or whatever it is, all our hopes and aspirations have a framework, are within, you could say, a frame, within a the coordinate system is something that is not experienced, but it is utterly essential for the description of any experience. Where I am and how I go from here to there. So, but what is the reality of the coordinate system? It doesn't come into existence. It has never come into existence, and it can never disappear because it is not the thing itself. The thing itself comes and goes, but the essence of it, the appearance comes and goes, but the essence of it is unchangeable. So in that sense, in a very crude representation, you could say, we talk about the coordinate system, without which we cannot describe any experience. Without a framework, without an edge, we cannot have any painting. So, but we generally ignore the framework, we ignore the fundamental reality. The painting is on a canvas, and we put a lot of emphasis on the painting itself. But the painting can be altered, or I can do all sorts of things to it. But it is the canvas. Without the canvas, that painting itself will not be seen, will not exist. So, in our own existence, that is also true. Things come and go, but that which is the very framework within which we operate is not material. It has never come into existence, and therefore it can never go. But without the framework, our life itself cannot even be experienced. So this is very apparent in the modern world. It's a very modern idea, but and Sri Ramakrishna perceived that even in his boyhood. So the realization of God that came from his very boyhood, also because of his parents, also emphasized that. So that is one very salient aspect of Sri Ramakrishna's experience. And as part of that, as a boy, he would, being absorbed in trying to understand and experience that, when he worshipped the different symbols that were worshipped in his house, the question was always, is this real? Is this real? And later on, when many incidents of his life, later, he had come to Calcutta, and his brother had become the priest in a temple on the bank of the Ganga, temple whose main deity was the Divine Mother, Kali, and for some reason he had to do the worship. He himself had to do the worship of the deity. And the question was, the honesty of Sri Ramakrishna, actually the very scientific temperament that he had, is truly amazing. He was saying, so not just because, it was he was doing this worship because it was the custom of his family, because it was the thing that he had been hired to do, or the thing that he had been requested to do, that his brother had commanded him to do. All those things were there, but his main concern was, is this real? I am worshipping this goddess, this being. I'm assuming that there is a divine reality that is called Mother, and that is actually the source and origin of the universe. And is that real? And so he would do all sorts of things like this. He would, at one time, he would hold a piece of cloth, a small piece of cloth in front of her and see if she was actually breathing, if that cloth was waving in her breath. And his consciousness had become so attuned to the underlying reality, so at one with it, that he actually perceived this to be a reality, that image that he was worshipping, that he had invoked, in which he had invoked the presence of the deity, that the deity actually penetrated that image. And so in so many ways he tested his faith, oh, Mother, if such and so, if you're true, if what I perceive to be is true, then you will, such and such will come here. And such and such did come there. At one time, even, he said something about a stone, and he said, let this stone jump or something. I don't remember the details of it. And that also happened. Now, the point is, as far as Sri Ramakrishna and the modern world are concerned, his concern was very, very scientific. And it was not just something that he was simply doing because he had achieved great results in it, or because it was something that he'd been taught by his parents, or something that he hoped to realize in the future. He actually wanted to see, is this thing that I'm doing, is it really based upon reality? Is there really truth in it? Or is it imagination? Now, so as far as Sri Ramakrishna's main message to us, to anyone in the 21st century, is that these spiritual things are real, that there is a way of experiencing all these things, because the scientific attitude is, well, you may say it, and 20 generations of people may have believed it, and all my ancestors may have accepted it, but if I don't find it to be true, I won't have any hesitation in saying that, casting doubt upon the whole thing. So with that intensity and with that great yearning, he experienced the reality of all these things that had been prescribed, that he for generations had been prescribed, and his had been worshipped or done. He found that there was a reality here. See, we don't see that because we're so tied to the apparent, to that which is on the surface of things. But the whole purpose of spiritual practice is to bring us into consciousness of the fact that there is something else. There is something behind that which is perceived. There is something which is not immediately perceived, but whose presence can be experienced, and whose reality can be more and more felt to be true by undertaking these practices that have been sanctioned by generations, by millennia of spiritual aspirants. So it is to bring the modern world from the surface of reality, from the appearance to the essence. You could say that is Sri Ramakrishna's message or intent as far as the modern world is concerned. We're very distinguished by our ability of having been able to organize the surface of things in a very efficient way, of having been able to understand the physical and intellectual realities in a very profound way, of having made great progress in all these external fields. But the old spiritual essence of things is, in a sense, being de-emphasized. And although in all the world religions, that has been the major emphasis, that there is a spiritual reality, there is something beyond the visible, beyond the thinkable, beyond the inferable, there is something which is the foundation of every experience. And that is the meaning of yoga, to try to calm the external in order to perceive what is at the heart of everything that is external. So the first teaching verse of the Yoga Sutras is Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What is yoga? Yoga is the nirodha, the restraining of the chitta, that is the internal reality, the mind, you could say, restraining that mind from bursting into waves from activity. When we quieten the mind, then we perceive that which is at the heart of the mind, that which is hidden by the motions of the mind. It's just like when you're looking at a lake, as long as the wind is blowing, the surface is ruffled and you cannot see the bottom of the lake. But when the wind on the lake entirely stops, the water becomes utterly quiet. You can clearly, if the water is clear as it is in some of these mountain lakes, you can clearly see to the bottom. So the idea is, by restraining the exterior, we are able to perceive that which is at its heart, which is its essence. So it's not a mysterious thing, it's not something that occult practices have to be undertaken, but the idea that beneath the surface of reality, which constantly changes, there is an essence which has never come into existence and therefore can never be destroyed. In the Upanishad it said, Sadeva Somya Idam Agra Asit. Sat itself, existence itself, the idea of existence, the reality of a thing was there in the very beginning. The heart, that which is at the heart of reality, was never created. Agre, in the beginning, this existence, this concept, this reality, the reality of existence itself, was there at the very beginning. It was never created. It is, as I was saying, like the coordinate system. Whatever we observe, the coordinate system has never been created, it always exists. So the point is that there is within, at the heart of everything that's changing, there is a reality which cannot change. It is if you're looking at a picture, if you're looking at the best example, of course, is a motion picture, is a movie. When you're looking at the movie, what's seen on the screen is constantly changing. But without the presence of the screen, nothing would be seen at all. And so without the presence of that reality, which is called God, which is called Brahman, which is given innumerable names, without the presence of that reality, nothing at all would be seen. There would be no experience whatsoever. The fact that we experience anything is because of the presence of that background, that screen upon which all manifestation is displayed. That screen is the infinite, the eternal. It was always there. It can never be changed. When we hold on to that, we achieve that eternity ourselves. Because the body, we know the body comes and goes. The mind itself is vigorous or it becomes insensitive. But the reality that's at the heart of every perception has never come into existence. It has always been there. It is the blackboard upon which everything is written. It is the screen upon which everything is displayed. So Sri Ramakrishna made these things through his life, made all of these things very perceptible and very real. And he taught his disciples in this way, and his disciples spread his message over the world. Swami Vivekananda came to the United States for the Chicago Parliament of Religions in 1893, and he spread his message in America and England, and also in France, and this is the message. This is the ancient message of India. And if you talk to Swami Vivekananda's statement was, if you look, I've taught nothing but the Upanishads. The Upanishads being the basic scriptures of Hinduism, of which I quoted this one from the Chandogya Upanishad, that existence itself was at the beginning. One can say an additional thing. In the Upanishad, it again raises the opposite issue. It says, the next verse, some say that non-existence was there in the beginning, and from non-existence, existence came. The Upanishad itself answers, how could it be that non-existence could come from existence? No. In the beginning, existence was there. In other words, there was not nothing. That is one additional statement that is very clearly made. In the beginning, at the heart of everything, there is not nothing. There's no nihilism involved in this. At the heart of everything exists. The existence itself is an unchangeable, unoriginated, undecaying reality. And it is possible, by restraining the external, it is possible to perceive that, to become one with the eternal, to realize that that eternal, which was never originated, which can never disappear, that eternal is still the reality of everything at the present moment. And when we become identified with that, then that is also the highest experience, and it is the experience of that existence, Satchidananda. It is sometimes described in those ways: existence, consciousness, and also it is bliss, it is joy. So the basic nature of everything is that at the heart of every perception there is something that exists and something that is conscious. We are not, the ultimate reality is not an unconscious something. The exist is just pure consciousness, pure being, pure consciousness, which itself is pure joy. So, anyway, Sri Ramakrishna is our guide in all this. There's so many more things that could be said, but that is all for now. So if there are any questions or thoughts that you would like to raise, that would be appropriate at this time.
Swami, many years ago, I heard this quotation from Attar. Attar was a 12th century Sufi. And he said, the fact that there is hunger presupposes the fact that there is bread. So we hunger for something that must exist. It's just
Yes, that is exactly what we're talking about. The reason that we hunger for something is because we know that it exists. And knowing that it exists and not being able to see it at our own level, knowing that it exists in the spiritual sense and seeing no trace of it in the physical or intellectual sense, that is the source of our misery. And but religion says that no, the fact it is exactly that. The fact that there is hunger for it shows that it does exist, that there is within us that which predates, which is more ancient than every manifestation. And so therefore there's something in us which knows the totality, even though it has not experienced it, and because it knows that there is a background, therefore it knows that there is a painting, there is a reality here. We can see the frame of the painting, we can see the structure of the painting. Now we have to remove the dust from the surface of the painting, and then that painting itself will become, in its glorious colors, will become visible to us.
This idea that existence cannot come out of non-existence, I've never heard that before. And it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, it's kind of a silly argument that existence came out of non-existence.
Yes.
It's amazing.
That is the Chandogya Upanishad. Yeah, it raises, that's the thing is, the Upanishads are totally fearless in their pursuit of trying to find the truth of things. That otherwise it could have simply said Sadeva Somya Idam Agra Asit. Sat alone, existence alone was there in the beginning. It could have simply said that. But then it raises the idea, but some people say non-existence was there in the beginning. Then it says, no, how could that be? How could non-existence arise from existence? Be ahead of, how could existence arise from non-existence? And, that it simply makes that statement, no, how could it be? The words simply don't convey that meaning, cannot convey that meaning. And the words are a reflection of the experience of the sages. And the sages have all posited that reality in the beginning. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. This is the basic idea. The Father is there. That it is impossible that there should be any. It is impossible that there should be such a thing as unconsciousness, non-existence, as being at the heart of everything. No, that reality is there, God is there, whatever name you want to give it, the infinite, the eternal. You may not call it by any particular name, but at least Sat, the Upanishad calls it Sat. Existence. Existence is the frame within which everything that exists is perceived, and everything that exists everything that has come can go, but that which has never come can never go, and that is the reality that that we're being reminded of in this way. And Sri Ramakrishna's final conclusion in this respect of these things is that what the ancient rishis declared will stand. He could vouch from his own experience. What the ancient rishis said, these statements in the Upanishads, that will stand. That is not going to be undercut by anything. And if you look at the Upanishad, it is an enormously joyful and absolutely blissful description of reality. At the heart of it, they called it Ananda. At the heart of it is this existence, but that is also consciousness. In other words, consciousness itself never, there was no beginning to consciousness, and that bliss itself is at the very heart of everything that exists. Ananda is Satchid Ananda. These are different descriptions of that fundamental reality. And this is to bring this to the modern world is Sri Ramakrishna's message, is the sum, you could say, the sum and substance of spirituality that he has experienced and that he is demonstrating.
Swamiji, this is Satish Chauhan from Vallejo.
Yes.
Namaskar. Namaskar. My question is that if the purpose of spiritual practices is to find the deeper reality or the fundamental essence in an unchangeable framework, is that same as for uninitiated people like myself search for the face of God?
Yes. Because God, what is God? What is that divine reality? What is it that our heart yearns for? Our heart yearns for this, for that joy, for that unending joy, that which is infinite in space and eternal in time. Other than that, we're not satisfied. Everything else, or every other description, will never be totally satisfactory. It may be all right for some time, may be all right under some circumstances, but what we're deeply yearning for is that which is totally joyful, unchangeably and infinitely joyful. That reality in which there's nothing to be desired, there's nothing to be wanted, there's nothing to be regretted. When that comes, that total satisfaction comes, then that only that can satisfy us. And this is what all these spiritual practices of all religions, they all aim at trying to provide that, trying to get us to a point where we will experience a joy, an existence, a fulfillment that is unchangeable and unchanging, and that which is at the heart of everything. Because everyone knows this life has come and this life will go. And the big question mark is, what are we supposed to do here? What did we come to this world to accomplish? And every finite thing that we can accomplish eventually will disappear. Eventually it'll last for some time and then it'll decay, it'll disappear. Is there nothing that is eternal? Is there nothing that is totally fulfilling, that is all encompassing, all joy? And it's only when the finite itself merges in the infinite. Sri Ramakrishna walking along this field as a boy, seeing this flock of cranes, his mind was absorbed into that which is what we're all aiming for. It is the infinite, the eternal, and so he lost consciousness of the physical surroundings, and the people thought he had been, he had taken sick in some way, but that is what we are all looking for. That which is infinite, eternal, which is totally satisfying. And that is available within us. That is the heart of our own reality, is that very thing. If it were not possible to attain it, it would not, as we were just saying, it would not really make any sense, and it would not really have appeared. The fact that this yearning is there shows, and this yearning has been eulogized in scriptures for hundreds and thousands of years. The fact that is there, and the fact that some people have experienced it, shows that all people can experience it.
Follow-up question, Swamiji, from my wife Surekha, and that is along the same lines. Why is the face of God hidden?
Why is what?
The face of God hidden from us.
The face of God is hidden from us. Reveal it, O nourisher. Yes, yes. The point is, the face of God is not hidden from us. We're not seeing it. What we're seeing, we're interpreting in the wrong way. The face of God, when a mother sees her newborn child, that is the face of God. She is seeing that, but what she's seeing is she thinks of it as, it's her little child. Actually, that which is, we're connecting to that which is infinite in us. When we're looking outside, if we see anything grand, it's our own inner grandeur that is actually being perceived, and we're amazed by it. So when we see these mountains, or if you stand like at that Mayavati ashrama in the Himalayas, the reason you're able to fully, sort of absorb yourself in that, it is because it is part of your own reality. You are seeing something which is part of your own reality. Really, we cannot see anything outside at all. Whatever we're seeing is seeing within. Swami Vedananda makes that clear. What we see outside as being the essence outside is the same reality as what is the essence inside. That's why we see oneness with it. That's why we perceive its oneness.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Hari Om, Hari Om. Shanti, Prithivi Shanti, Apo Shanti, Roshadaya Shanti, Vanaspataya Shanti, Vishwe Deva Shanti, Brahma Shanti, Sarvam Shanti, Shantireva Shanti, Sama Shantiredhi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is in the sky, on the earth and in the waters. The herbs, the plants and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us all.